Hey, let me tell you one of the ugliest words in the English language. Ungrateful. Ungrateful. Nobody wants that, right? And like loyalty, which we talked about last week, it's impossible to see in the mirror. Like you know when you're angry, you know when you're afraid, you know when you're nervous, you might even admit when you feel insecure. But this one we never see in the mirror. And if anyone ever tells you that you are ungrateful, you immediately get defensive and tell them they're wrong, right? And maybe most of us haven't heard that since maybe we were children. We don't say that to adults, at least not to their face. But as children, no doubt, I'm going to assume we heard this. I mean, I know I did. Every once in a while, my parents might say something like, you're ungrateful. And I've said that to my kids a few times over the years. And when someone tells us that we're ungrateful, we feel like they're accusing us of not feeling something. That's why we get defensive. Like we think, well, wait a minute, I'm grateful. And we begin to rehearse all of the grateful thoughts and feelings, and then we start to feel more grateful for the things they told us that we felt ungrateful for. And by the time they're done telling us we're ungrateful, we're feeling more gratitude than we felt in a long time, which makes us respond, you're wrong. And that's why this is really hard to see in the mirror. This is why you could spend the rest of your life in your key relationships and be this and never ever know it. In fact, I bet there are some people sitting here right now thinking, I'm so glad he or she is here. I wish my kids were here, Others might think, I wish my spouse, I wish my parents were here, because you see it, but they don't. And there may even be a couple here that says that they're both glad the other is here, because it's so easy to see in somebody else, but almost impossible to see in ourselves. This is so important for several reasons. Number one, gratitude generates generosity. Gratitude generates generosity. When you've been generous to someone and they have been grateful, you want to be more generous, don't you? I mean, like when you've been generous to someone and they're not grateful, it kind of shuts you down a little bit, at least for me it does. Like if you've ever worked with people, like you're in a service industry or you've worked, with the homeless, or you've even done like the community dinner and you're directly serving people. It's so interesting because the people who are grateful, like you want to be more generous to, and the people who just kind of take you for granted or feel entitled, you just want to shut down towards them. It's a natural reaction, and this can happen at all levels of society. That gratitude generates even more generosity. But there's an even more important reason why this is an important virtue. Ingratitude not only shuts down generosity, but number two, ingratitude can shut down an entire relationship. It can shut down a relationship. In fact, some of you, if we were to read your mind, we would learn of an ongoing relationship that used to be warm and full of life, and it shut down over time. And it shut down over time because somewhere along the way, they began to send you a signal that they just weren't grateful. And because of their ingratitude, you don't feel very generous when it comes to time or involvement or emotion or passion or whatever it is that they expect from you. See, where gratitude generates generosity, ingratitude doesn't simply stop the generosity. It has the power to shut down an entire relationship. And the worst thing about it is that we never know what's going on because, again, we can't see it in the mirror. We don't know we're ungrateful. We can see it in other people. But I've never met a person in all my years of counseling and premarital sessions who said, my problem is that I'm just ungrateful. No one's ever said that, probably never will hear it. I've heard people confess just about every other shortcoming except for ingratitude and probably greed. Those two. Because it's almost impossible to see it. In fact, this could be at the heart of your relational struggles with your parents or your kids or your spouse or someone at work. That's why it's so important. Well, let's look at Luke chapter 17 to see if the Bible can shed some light on this important virtue. This is a story in the life of Jesus. It's so interesting because it's an obvious illustration of the effect of ingratitude. Verse 11, it says, "Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee, and as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. And they stood at a distance and they called out in a loud voice, 'Jesus, Master, have pity on us.'" Now, in that culture, leprosy was a feared, dreaded disease. Today, This form of leprosy is most commonly known as Hansen's disease. It's not terminal, but it typically didn't heal on its own, and so people thought it was contagious. And so when somebody had any signs of leprosy, they immediately got outside the community, generally in an area or community with other lepers. And so people were assigned to take them food. They were outcasts. It was a horrible disease because you're not part of the community anymore. You have to join a different community full of other outcasts. And everywhere you went, you had to announce that you were coming so that the clean people, got out of the way and could avoid you. In this culture, it also meant that you were a religious outcast. You were ceremonially unclean, and therefore you couldn't participate in temple worship. And so basically, your life was destined to be alone or only in contact with other people who had the same problem. And so Jesus is out in this border area that's sparsely populated, and he's moving, and all of a sudden he hears these voices calling out, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." And let me just explain that. Go, show yourselves to the priests. Jesus is saying a lot of things with that simple statement. First of all, according to Old Testament law, when a leper realized that his leprosy had gone away, which happened occasionally, sometimes mysteriously, or sometimes their diet changed or whatever was causing it, and they would go to the priest to have the priest check them out to make sure they didn't have leprosy anymore, and then they would declare, "Hey, you're now clean. You can come back into society and worship at the temple, and you're good to go." And so Jesus says from a distance, "Hey guys, all 10 of you, just go show yourselves to the priests." Which is odd because at this point they didn't have anything to show the priest except for their leprosy. And so Jesus is asking them to do something that perhaps Jesus has asked us to do. He's asking them to walk by faith. To walk by faith is simply taking God at His word and doing what you would do if you believed God keeps His promises. And so Jesus is saying, "Hey, you think you know who I am? You called me Master and Lord, so you must have some kind of faith in me. If you really believe who you think I am, then I want you to go show yourself to the priest as an act of faith." Another thing Jesus is doing here is that he knew that when the lepers got to the priest was going to ask, how'd this miracle happen? I mean, if like one leper shows up, leprosy's gone, like, wow, that's amazing. But if 2, 3, 10 lepers show up and their leprosy is healed and they say it was from this guy named Jesus, like that's going to make a big impact on the temple and the politics of the region and really all of the culture. And so just imagine how they felt, right? The emotions of joy. And so all 10 decide they're going to make the journey into town, find the priest, and see if, in fact, Jesus had healed them. And here's what happens. It says, "And as they went, they were cleansed." Now here's where the story gets interesting. One of them, not 9 or 10 of them, one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back. One of them came back. This guy is the returner. He's the only guy who saw his new healthy skin and is feeling things he hasn't felt in a long time, and he realizes, hey, I've been healed, and he returns to Jesus. And he came back praising God in a loud voice. Now, it's at this point in the story that children's Sunday school teachers, will make the point, like, hey, only one went back. Why not all 10? But look at what this guy does when he finally gets to Jesus. He throws himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. So he throws himself at Jesus' feet in this amazing display of gratitude, and Luke makes sure that we know that he isn't even Jewish. He's a Samaritan. And Jesus asks him a very important question. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Where are they? And we're going to come back to that at the end of the message, but here's the tension that a lot of us live with in our relationships as it relates to gratitude. Jesus points out that there's something wrong with this picture. Jesus points out that for only one of the 10 is the circle of gratitude closed. For the other 9, it's still open. Were not all 10 cleansed? He goes on. Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? And then he said to him, rise and go, your faith has made you well. End of story. Now again, when we first hear the story, there's like this emotional response of, wow, like the other 9 were so ungrateful, weren't they? Like how could they be so ungrateful that they could just go on their own merry way? I mean, Jesus just gave them their life back, their family back, their career back, their future back. Jesus just gave them more than they'll ever be given again, and 9 of them go on their own way and only 1 returns? How ungrateful are they? The interesting thing about the story, though, is we wouldn't even think about this story of ingratitude if 1 hadn't returned. Because when you read the rest of the accounts in Jesus' life, he heals a lot of people who don't come back and say thank you. And we don't go, well, whatever happened to them? How come they didn't? It's just because this one story where the 1 returns and the other 9 don't that we even think about it. I mean, Jesus does amazing things. And there are very few accounts of people actually returning to Jesus to say thank you. Because the people in most of those miracles do exactly like we do, right? They take their toys and run. They're overwhelmed with what they have that they didn't have before, and they run, just like these 9 lepers. They move forward, right? Because there's no point in going back, because life is about moving forward, and there's all kinds of new energy and passion around the new thing that has happened. I mean, you can't blame them. They've been embraced by their family and children. It has been years since they've had connection with these people, and so of course there's a lot to think about for these people, and we wouldn't see this as a story of ingratitude if 1 hadn't returned. Now the other interesting thing is this: don't you imagine that if we could chase down the other 9 while this is happening? We have reporters all over the place, and we send you all out to help, and you find one of the 9, and you say, aren't you grateful that Jesus healed you? What do you think they would say? Heck yeah! I'm so grateful. It's amazing. We can't wait to tell our families and tell them about Jesus for the rest of our lives. It's just different now. We are so overwhelmingly thankful for Jesus that he healed us. Our hearts are overflowing with gratitude. I'm feeling grateful. I'm having many grateful thoughts. Meanwhile, Jesus is still back with the one guy going, weren't there 10? And only 1 has returned? He's not even Jewish? And the other 9 are thinking, this is the greatest day of our lives. And Jesus is going, where are they? There's something wrong. And that's why this is so hard to see. They have no earthly idea that there's an unfinished circle. They have the same problem that we have. And here it is. They all felt it. They just didn't express it. They all felt it. They just didn't express it. I mean, let me tell you what's going on in your relationships. You feel it, but maybe you haven't expressed it. And that's what makes this dangerous relationally. Because, you may have told your boss how great your wife is. You may have told your friends how great your husband is. You've told your teacher how awesome, grateful you are for your parents. You've told your mom how grateful you are for your dad. You've told everybody else because you feel it, but you may not have expressed it to the right person. And somewhere in your life, there's somebody, and they won't say it in these words, but they're thinking, wasn't there 10? And only 1 came back? Because here's the reality. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. I mean, unexpressed gratitude is real gratitude, okay? I mean, I really feel it and believe it. I really am grateful. But unexpressed gratitude is real gratitude, but it communicates the very opposite of what we think and feel. It communicates ingratitude, and just like the other 9 lepers, we're so future-oriented, but if you stopped and asked, I'd tell you how grateful I feel. But unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude, and it's almost impossible to see in ourselves. And it gets worse. Unexpressed gratitude is actually a form of rejection. It's a form of rejection. Like this story is probably a little too real. It's been many years ago, but if you've cooked for your children or spouse, you probably understand this. You decide to cook this elaborate meal, everybody's favorite. You grocery shopped, got home early from work. You put all this time and energy into making this great meal for your family, and you call everyone to the table. It's dinner time. You call everyone to the table. It's like, where's everybody at? Dinner time, tumbleweed, blows through the house. It's like pulling teeth just to get them to the table, right? You call again. Finally, they get there and they sit down, but everyone's focused on their own thing. One child wants to keep the TV on. They'll mute it as a compromise. Another kid's texting their friends. Spouse is looking through the mail. And they're eating a lot and fast because it's really good. You did a great job. And then they want to be excused and you start seething, right? They have no idea how mad you are. And if you were to pause and say, hey, don't you all appreciate the meal I made for you? They'd say, oh yeah, high five, Mom, thanks. Absolutely. But no one does that. And no one asks that. So do you know what your parent or your spouse or whoever did that for you feels? They feel rejection in that moment. And everybody kind of gets up and scatters, and there they are, and they're in a bad mood now. And then husbands, we ask the dumbest question at that point. We walk into the kitchen, she's visibly frustrated with something, and we ask what? Is there something wrong, honey? And you're hoping that the knives haven't been sharpened that week, okay? Because we have no idea because we didn't express it, and by not expressing it, we actually express the opposite. Like what you said was, we're not thankful. After all, you're your mom or your dad, you're supposed to cook. That's your job. We're entitled. Leave us alone. And you feel something that they never intended you to feel. And it goes both ways, doesn't it? Men, not trying to gender stereotype, but at least in our household, it's like, hey, Dad, can I have $20? Get a job. I'm thinking when they're younger, okay? They're 12 and they want something. Dad, there's a sale. My computer's too slow. Dad, car needs new tires. I need. Dad, I'm going to prom. I need a dress. And they do, right? You can't say no to that. And you're shelling out credit cards and cash, and then, the family wants to go on vacation. It's like you're an ATM, and it's going out and out and out. And if you're the main provider, and again, this could be a man or a woman, but I thought I'd give the men a little break here. You love being a provider, and you're grateful for your job because, some friends don't even have one. But after a while, you get kind of mad. And if you were to stop your wife or your kids and say, hey, you're so lucky to have a husband or a father who provides like that, they would say, yes, absolutely, he's the best. But no one ever told him. And you know what he feels? Rejection. And you don't see it because ingratitude is almost impossible to see in the mirror, but the bottom line is that if it isn't expressed, it doesn't exist. Case in point, Jesus, weren't there 10? And they're having a party, they're so grateful. Unexpressed gratitude is the same as ingratitude. What we express is this: you're my son, you're supposed to do that. You're my employee, you're supposed to do that. Aren't I entitled to these things? And at the end of the day, unexpressed gratitude goes even further. Unexpressed gratitude has the same outcome as rejection. Let me just tell you about the people in your life. You know this, but I'm just reminding you. God created all of us as acceptance magnets. We gravitate to environments and relationships of acceptance, and we're repelled by environments and relationships where we don't feel accepted. Some of us don't compete in things we don't think we can win because winning feels like acceptance and losing feels like rejection. Trust me, I know. Unexpressed gratitude has the same effect as rejection. So over time, if you continually refuse gratitude, you will drive their hearts out of the relationship, and then they'll still come home, they'll still do their stuff, even do stuff for you. But over time, unexpressed gratitude or perceived ingratitude drives people's hearts out of the relationship. And if there's somebody on the other side of the relationship that's saying, thank you, you're so kind, you're so warm, thank you, that's where their hearts will go instead. Because our hearts gravitate towards gratitude. So let me just ask you, as I'm saying all of this, who comes to mind for you? Who haven't you expressed gratitude towards that deserves it? Because unexpressed gratitude is ingratitude. Unexpressed gratitude is rejection. Unexpressed gratitude drives people's hearts out of the relationship over time and drives them to environments where people appreciate them. Last thing, going back to the text, gratitude closes the loop. Gratitude closes the loop in our relationship with God, one reason why we worship, why it's so important that we worship, and it also closes the loop with other people. I mean, just quick illustration. You already know this, but it's just a good way to remember this, right? You go to a little kid's birthday party. We've all been there, right? And before you know it, it's little Jimmy's birthday, and Lori's his best friend, and the moms are there, and Lori gives Jimmy his birthday present. Wait till you see what it is, Jimmy. Jimmy rips it open, right? It's a great gift. I don't know what kids want these days, so I don't know what it is, but it's whatever he wanted. She brought it to him, and he's excited. He is so happy. Now, in that moment, though, Jimmy's mom realizes that the loop isn't closed, right? And before Jimmy rips the gift out of the box and plays with it, Jimmy's mom always asks the same question. 4 words. Starts with what? What do you say? Right? Now, why is mom doing that? Because mom, as an outsider, realizes that the loop has to be closed. Don't just go run off and play. What do you say? And Lori's over there, What do you say? Because mom knows something's wrong. And here's how Jesus said it. Weren't there 10? Only 1 returned? What do you say? And Jimmy has no clue because he's a young, he's new at this thing, right? So that's why they coach him. That's why good parenting, you coach them, right? If they don't know that intuitively, you teach your kids, hey, say thank you. And then they get into the habit and they understand why that's important because someday they're the person giving the gift and they don't want to see someone run off with the gift and have fun and okay, I guess, what am I doing here, right? Because intuitively that unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. It feels like rejection. Of course you gave me a gift. It's my birthday. We don't say that, right? And over time, not instantly, but over time, unexpressed gratitude has the same impact as rejection, and it chases a person's heart out of the relationship. Now, this message is for me because so many people do so many things for me, and this is my understanding now, that to refuse to pay my debt of gratitude is to live with an inflated view of myself. That's what happens. They understand. It's just my wife. I do a lot for them. But to refuse to pay my debt of gratitude is to live with an inflated view of myself. It's living of course they do that kind of thing. I'm entitled. It's to live with an inflated view, they owe me view of myself. And for you to live with unexpressed gratitude in your marriage, with your children, whether adult or still young, with your grandchildren, is to live with an inflated view of yourself. And the call of this passage is that we would be like the one. We would be returners. A returner is someone who's willing to go back to those who help them move forward. That's what a returner is. It's someone who's willing to go back to those who help them move forward in their lives. And there are dozens of people in all of our lives who've invested in us, loved us, provided jobs for us, education for us, that without their help, we would not have been able to move forward. And that was the case with the 10. None of them could have moved forward without Jesus. Only one returned to the one who could help him move forward with his life. So the question is, are you willing for the rest of your life to be a returner? And did you know that in your relationships, simply making it a habit of expressing gratitude may be the thing that saves that relationship and helps move it forward? Because it's impossible to see in the mirror. The only way to avoid becoming an ungrateful person is to become proactive and decide, I'm going to be a returner. I'm never going to miss an opportunity to go back to those who help me move forward with my life. Now, on your insert there is just a place for you to remember who you should have thanked or should be thanking. It says, I owe. Now or later, whenever you want to, I would list some people you should thank. Who do you owe a debt of gratitude at work? In the community? In your extended family? If you're in a school environment at the school, or maybe you're out of one now, but you never really did thank someone there. Like there are no exceptions. Regardless, like this has nothing to do with if you're a Christian or not. This is just being a better person. Because you know that you owe somebody and that you are a better person because of what they've done for you. So who are they? And are you willing to be the one who takes time to go back and say out loud or put on a piece of paper what's already in your heart but have been too busy or too proud to say? Now, before we close, let me just get a little more personal. I want us to have great relationships in our marriages, with our kids, with significant others. It grieves me when relationships get broken for whatever reason. And so I'm challenging you, when you get in the car to go home, reach over and look them in the eye and take a deep breath and swallow your pride and just say, thank you. And then fill in the blank with whatever you're thankful for. And men, I understand this. If I were you out there and a pastor said that, I would be thinking, I can't do it today. Like she'll be thinking it's just because he said to do it, right? I understand that. Jennifer will tell you that's exactly what I would do, and I would put it on my calendar to wait exactly a month before I said, hey, honey, I just had this idea, right? Even though it was just the same idea, I just waited because I didn't want to look like I had to do it. But men, let me just predict your future. If your wife has even average emotional intelligence, she will not say to you, you're just saying that because he told you to say that. She will be grateful if you say it with all sincerity. Ladies, some of you, your husbands have served you, and you've never said thank you. Maybe you never heard your parents say thank you, so you didn't even think about it. And in your heart, you're grateful for them, but maybe you've never expressed it because they can't see your heart. They don't hear what you tell your friends. They just hear what you say to them. So let me challenge you to look into his eyes and say thank you, and whatever else comes to mind. Students, some students in here, you live in a culture where you are made to feel so ridiculously entitled, and it's not your fault. Okay, you didn't create culture, we did. So you're just born into one, so it's not your fault, but you can be the returner. And I don't know if it's cool or not, but you could be like the teenager who says thank you to your parents. I mean, your mom risked her life to bring you into the world, right? So just swallow your pride, look them in the eyes, write them a note. If you can't do it that way, that's what my son Micah does. He writes great notes each year to us, and he gets really personal, and we keep those. It's even better than sometimes saying it to their face, because then you've got a record, and you can remind them that's what they said. But just get personal and say, hey, mom or dad or grandma or granddad or a teacher at school, whatever. They're not perfect. That's not what it's about. None of us are. But you could be a returner. You be the one. You finish the loop and do something unusual in our culture that's teaching all of us. You don't owe anyone anything because they owe you everything. You could be the one. So let's decide that we'll all be returners, that we'll all go back to those who helped us move forward in whatever area of our lives, and God will honor in those key relationships, but we'll have to decide that we want to be the one. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, it's a very convicting message. None of us say thank you enough. Certainly not to you. Maybe there's not enough time to write all the notes we should write. We should try. Bring somebody to mind for each of us. Give us the courage to act, and I pray for all of those cars that are going to sit in the parking lot, maybe hopefully a few extra minutes. Do something miraculous. Break down some barriers that have been there for a long time, perhaps. Heal relationships between kids and parents. And God, on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you for sending your son Jesus into this world to die for our sins, to make these things possible, for preserving this story for 2,000 years for our benefit so we could just be better human beings like your son Jesus. We don't say it enough. Even though we gather in this room and we sing it, sometimes it's not always coming from our heart. But today we say, thank you, Jesus. We love you and we praise you. It's in whose name we pray. Amen.